You're listening to Checking In, a self-help book club hosted by Adam and Amber, where we read self-help books each week and sit down to talk about them.
Disclaimer: the opinions recorded on this podcast are our own and do not reflect the authors mentioned here. Hey folks, welcome back to Checking In, a self-help book club with Adam and Amber. How are you doing today, Amber? Let's check in.
I'm good. It's really cold.
Yeah, it's really cold outside, and it's, for our listeners, it's after January 1st, so Happy New Year to our listeners.
Yeah.
We missed Christmas. We forgot to wish you a Merry Christmas, Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays in general. I'm feeling like under the weather. And I don't mean that like, oh, I'm feeling under the weather. I feel like the weather has got me under it. Like tired, inflamed. Like my brain feels kind of hot.
Yeah.
Which is not a great sign if you know me or are around me. So we're going to get through today's book today with, we've got our little hurdles of the weather and feeling kind of low energy. We'll do our best. Today's episode is about the extremely requested The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine N.
Yeah.
You actually did a poll online about this. Tell me about that.
Oh,
because I don't manage the accounts or anything. I just talk.
So we had a poll just like, what books would you like to have us cover next? And obviously The Body Keeps the Score was the most requested, and then the second most was a Highly Sensitive Person.
Okay, so I was so off by one.
Well, we had like a group of like 8 books, and those
a stable of books.
Yeah,
binders full of books, if you will. Anyway, this is highly requested. It's not the most highly requested, but it's pretty darn highly requested. And
as kind of like The Body Keeps the Score, which was also highly requested again, I'm a little wondering like why this is so popular. I mean, I have heard of it.
I think I know why.
I don't think it's quite as popular as The Body Keeps the Score, but I have heard of it.
Nothing's as popular as that.
Yeah, it's more popular than Jesus. But I have a lot of people, a lot of therapists have recommended this one to me.
A lot of therapists have recommended it to you? How many are we talking about here, Amber?
I mean, like,
between a dozen and 20?
No.
Okay.
Like 3.
Okay. Okay. Back down to normal numbers.
Yeah.
For having a book recommended to you.
Well, I mean, like, I don't have that many therapists. Like, I've had, I keep them till I move.
Right. And then you curate a new stable of therapists.
No, I have told my therapist, like, each time, like, I've moved to Nashville and then now Atlanta, like, I usually have a team.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, like my band with our music team, you got to have your people that help you out with your shit. Yeah.
Like I have my, the psychiatrist or like a psychiatric nurse practitioner that will prescribe. Then I usually have a trauma therapist. And then, I now have a sex therapist.
Yay.
And then, now again, a couples therapist. So,
yeah, tell me how that goes.
Yeah.
And, okay, let me go ahead and just like kind of intro the book by essentially ripping off some of the questionnaire at the beginning. Y'all ignore the dog. I think Jolene is trying to get in to chew her bone in the studio instead of upstairs on the couch where she belongs. And she likes burying her used bones in the cushions of the couch.
Oh, my God.
If it gets to be really bad, we will switch it off because I understand that some of y'all might be highly sensitive people. Hey, highly sensitive people, what the fuck does that mean? Well,
it means a lot of things.
When I was starting the book, my first impression is going to be that, like, these people take offense to everything. No, that's not what it is. So, Elaine Aron gave us a little checklist at the beginning of the book. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's only like 22 questions. And by the way, I answered yes to about 20 of them. Which immediately changed my impression of whether or not the book was going to be aimed at me.
I don't know. I felt like it was a little bit of like Codependent No More, is where like this seems like it could apply to quite a number of people.
Yes.
Because she said,
a bit.
I feel like that like maybe half of people are highly sensitive. But I just feel like
I thought it was like a quarter.
Well, still, like even more so. Like I just feel like the questionnaire is could apply to a lot of folks.
Yeah. Throughout history, apparently.
Right. I mean, like,
we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So here's some of the questions. I am easily overwhelmed by strong sensory input.
Yes. I mean, if people
True.
knows what that means.
Right, exactly. Once we define that a little bit,
We'll
we can get...
if you be knowing.
I seem to be aware of subtleties in my environment. And
Yes.
I'll look around and like, that lady over there seems to be aware of subtleties in her environment. She noticed that I cleaned the brick wall this week. I find myself needing to withdraw during busy days into bed or into a darkened room or any place where I can have some privacy and relief from stimulation.
You do that a lot.
That sounds like depression, but also, yes.
Yeah.
I get extremely overstimulated and go into fuck you guys mode.
That's another thing that.
And I have an anecdote about that from this week for later.
Yeah. That's definitely like a hallmark of my depression is super isolation.
Yeah.
So.
I am particularly sensitive to the effects of caffeine, he says, eyeing his third mocha of the day. I don't know. Sometimes
You slipped into. I only had one.
Sometimes yeah. Maybe this is only my second. We'll edit that out. That's an important detail. That's an important blunder that I'll need to go back and edit. No, just kidding. Fuck that. I am easily overwhelmed by things like bright lights, strong smells, coarse fabrics, sirens, or children jumping all over me. Yes.
Definitely with the fabrics. Like I'm kind of crazy about like what kind of sheets I'm on.
And we've had the talk about the, Gildan extra fuck you blend of shirts that most bands have.
I'm not so affected by like my clothing as long as it's not like super tight anywhere.
Thing is, you're wearing your clothing,
right?
At least most of the time.
But as far as like, the t-shirts, like I get what you're saying. Like I can feel the difference, but like that does not bother me as much as like a blanket or a sheet or like a thing I'm sitting on might. Like if there are any crumbs in the bed, like I can't sleep.
Right. Same. Like if there's an entire sleeve of
Like,
Oreos in the bed.
If there's one crumb, like I will freak out.
Yeah. A, not going to be able to sleep. B, going to need like some chocolate milk to dip that in.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so here's a little bit more about it. And I'm just going to, I apologize, just plagiarize and paraphrase here. Generally, sensitivity is inherited. That means that as sensitive babies, which is an insult, by the way. No, she's just talking about how like we're like this when we're born.
Yes.
We're primed to respond to everything coming at us from birth. Our nervous systems are on the go, taking in every detail of what's happening around us. These feelings stay with us throughout life. So HSPs, get with the jargon, people. That means highly sensitive people. Are very sensitive to external stimuli. We react very strongly to external cues such as bright lights, crowded restaurants, loud noises. However, we also feel internal cues like pain, hunger, and memories very acutely. With too little in the way of stimulation, we can also feel bored, while too much could cause us to feel out of control. So furthermore, what's comfortable for one person isn't necessarily comfortable for another. Stepping back here, it's almost like we're all just like different people,
Right.
you know? Like
I was
just
like, yeah.
in some ways,
People are different.
we're all very different people.
I was like, yeah, people tolerate different things. Yeah.
Huh. I need an entire book about that. From a psychological point of view, our internal tendencies meet up with our early environment in the form of attachment. And depending on this attachment, two things may have happened. If we weren't calmed down, our sensitivity may have become heightened, and this caused stressful long-term stimulation. This may have increased our cortisol levels and depleted our serotonin. On the other hand, if we were soothed appropriately, we realized that the world wasn't as overwhelming as our arousal system was telling us, and our arousal was short-lived, and we went back to normal.
So yeah, this is kind of an issue that I have with the book is she kind of switches back from nature to nurture a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I guess that's intentional.
Yes, she's saying it's a bit of both.
Yeah. Because, on one hand she's like, we were all born this way, you can't really help it. And then on the other hand, she's like, oh, this is a result of A, B, or C.
Yes.
What you didn't get, or, some kind of trauma that you've received.
So let's say you come into the world and you're highly sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have parents that understand how to work with their own high sensitivity, they're going to do things to comfort you. Versus if you've got the wire monkey type situation, then some of these stimulating things like, these powerful thunderstorms or being set down for too long with, a lot of noise going on, that becomes traumatizing. And then the traumas start to kind of pile up on each other. And it sounds ridiculous on its face that like all of this stimulus is going to add up to trauma. But that's essentially saying that like, all right, so some of you are highly sensitive and you're fine. And on the other end, some of you are highly sensitive and have been kind of consistently fucked with your whole life. And you might be behind on learning how to, I don't know, self-soothe, understand yourself, etc. The book kind of seems kind of more gauged toward that. And before we jump into the book anymore, I'll just tell you all about Elaine N. Elaine N has a doctoral degree in clinical psychology and a thriving psychotherapy practice. She's the first therapist to tell HSPs how to identify their trait and make the most of it in everyday situations.
Boy, does she.
She sure does. As an HSP herself, Aron reassures others that they're quite normal. Their trait is not a flaw or a syndrome, nor is it a reason to brag. It's an asset that they can learn to use and protect.
Yeah, I remember that I was kind of chuckled at the part where she talked about some HSPs
Highly sensitive people
are a little bit arrogant about it.
As we got closer to the end of this book, I started to... So at the beginning, I'm like, well, I'm obviously an HSP.
Yeah.
I'm obviously a highly sensitive person. And then I watched myself be a highly sensitive person all week and was like, yeah, pretty much. But toward the end of the book, I started being like, I'm an empath. Like, I just feel things like really, really deeply.
Oh my God.
Stop it. Stop it.
I feel like anybody who says that is always like the worst person I've ever like interacted with. And I'm like, oh, so you could tell the whole time that this interaction was unpleasant?
Oh, so you knew that you were traumatizing them. Okay. Got it. You did it, but you understood it. Got it.
Yeah. So, Adam and I kind of chatted about this book off and on all week. And
yeah, we broke the rules.
Yeah. But I was telling him, like, I consider myself definitely identified with a lot of these. You might be a highly sensitive person. Is my Jeff Foxworthy impression really good? It's really good, right? Okay.
It is really, really
Wow.
good.
Oh my
Don't
God.
tell her she's really sensitive about it.
Yes.
She's highly sensitive about this.
Right.
But she lists for what feels
Right.
like 50% of the book.
Right.
You might be a highly sensitive person. It's just a really long, like Jeff Foxworthy bit that's
Yeah.
not funny.
Well, I mean, it kind of gets funny, like as long,
Yeah.
just because it's so long. But no, I was saying, like, although I identify with a lot of these things, I don't feel like I've always been this way.
Yeah.
And, like when I first picked up the book, I really thought that it was, or when it was recommended to me, I really thought that it was for people who, like myself, are really sensitive emotionally. And like, I really struggle with that because I cry really easily. And I know this about myself and, most of my friends and people who know me. And
Well, it's good. Your emotions are, right there
Well,
and easily
but I
accessible, and you're not
also-
numb and dead to the world, and that's fine.
right. And I also just always try to be so conscious about, I don't want to ever feel like I'm manipulating somebody by, them pointing out something to me and I just resort to crying. I mean, that's really not cool. If someone's really trying to like have a one-on-one with me.
Like if a cop pulls you over.
Well, I mean, I could care less.
Ma'am.
No, I didn't cry that time a cop pulled me over this year and searched my entire car, and I just stood there. I didn't even cry once.
Did you sass the officer?
No, I was really nervous though. I was like, I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to be driving on your road.
Anyway, but I digress. But no, I've always been, and told my whole life, like, you're so sensitive. You're too sensitive. You're so emotional. It's hard to talk to you. Every person I've ever dated, you're a crybaby. Growing up,
Wow.
caretakers of my various caretakers, you're a baby, you're a crybaby, you cry too much, you're too sensitive. So I kind of thought that this book was closer to that, but it does include that, but it's more like, so I've identified with the emotional sensitivity my whole life, but definitely the sensory overloads as far as like big crowds and lots of sounds and lots of feelings, that hasn't been a factor since I was diagnosed with PTSD.
Yeah. It kind of seems
Yeah.
like trauma will wake up this highly sensitive part of
Yeah.
your...
Because I, would definitely describe myself as introverted in all the telltale signs, but I wasn't always like that. Like, I used to really love going out every night of the week, love meeting people, I never felt weird in like a crowded venue or a bar. But yeah, like now I don't know if it's like me just getting older or like trauma or, mental illness. But I definitely have turned introverted.
She does talk about in the book how we have once again, it's like a thermostat for the amount of stimulation that we want and need. Yeah. That there's like an ideal Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, yeah.
And if we're too understimulated, then we kind of get diagnosed as, having like learning issues. Mm-hmm. And if we're too overstimulated, we'll get prescribed Ritalin. Mm-hmm. When really it's kind of about what's going on inside of our bodies and outside of our bodies, just in terms of stimulation. It's not a behavioral issue. It's a stimuli issue. And I can definitely tell you that my thermostat has changed as I've gotten older. Like the whole time I lived in Alabama, I just could not wait until I was old enough to go out and play on stage or see shows.
Yeah.
Like, I really wanted that adrenaline rush. And now I want to be able to walk off of that stage and go straight into a hot bath and go to bed. You know, like
He
there's
really
no,
does.
yeah, it is my favorite thing.
Well, no, I just mean like I have never like, at least in my experience in the music world, which is fairly limited, but have never, been around someone who like just literally gets off stage and then is like, bye, like it's time to go.
Yeah. And I noticed Chance, the other guitarist in my band, The Pinks, was more like that than me.
Yeah,
Like he
yeah.
pieces out like within minutes, if at all possible. And I would, feel like, well, I'm going to hang out at practice for a while after practice, or I'm going to hang out at the venue for a while afterward. And now I'm like, I have self-care shit to do.
Yeah.
I'm overstimulated by the stuff that happened tonight,
Yeah.
and I need to like back away the fuck off of it now.
Well, I also, when I was a young person, from my 18 to, in my early 20s, I didn't really value my alone time that much. Like I wasn't, like now I really enjoy it. The things that I can do alone, and which is also kind of a trauma response.
Yeah.
Being alone is safety. You're not like really feeling obligated, to anyone or anything.
No one's asking you for
Right.
anything.
I don't, have to be on for anybody. But yeah, I really do value my alone time a lot. And that was not something that I ever could identify with in my early adulthood. So yeah, my entire personality is a trauma response.
Whoops. Real talk. So there's this whole like self-regulation aspect to the book where she wants you to kind of notice when you're feeling overstimulated and what you should maybe do
Yeah.
as a response to that. I remember that she kind of gripes a lot in the book about us, HSPs, being called shy.
Yeah.
And how there are like social penalties for shyness.
Okay, straight up, I and Adam is probably going to definitely chime in here as well. I don't have an issue with being called shy. That's fine. I have an issue when people think like I'm mean or mad or stuck up.
All things that
When
people
I'm
read
really
onto
just
you.
like trying to hold it together because I'm so socially anxious and I'm just not talking a lot. Like, that used to really, really bother me. I mean, it still kind of does. I just haven't had anyone like say that to me in a while.
Yeah. Of course, I had my own issues.
Don't tell her
with
she's
that.
stuck up. She'll yell at you.
Like I feel like when I was really little, I was pretty extroverted, and
Yeah.
that bullies, as soon as I got to school, kind of beat it out of me.
Well, we talked about that. Like
Yeah.
when I was younger, I was talking to any random person
Yeah.
about like my favorite color and where I lived, and that's my mommy, and like blah blah blah.
And you need to get off of his lap. That's not Santa.
Right.
We don't know
That's
him.
not very safe. And we know now sometimes children react that way due to trauma in some types of ways.
But I feel like I used alcohol to get back to the point where, I didn't feel like I was in the wrong place, I
Yeah.
guess, or like I didn't belong somewhere. So I would just kind of drink back feelings of feeling like I didn't belong
Yeah.
so that I could continue to interact like what I felt like was a normal person.
I mean, that's legit.
And that got taken away from me 5 years ago, and I can't use that anymore.
I mean,
So here I am back to kind of feeling like I'm overstimulated by loud environments where it's okay. So music is one thing, but a cacophony of like 100 people talking and music and someone that I'm supposed to be paying attention to, my brain says no. It's I'm not going to figure out what the person 2 feet away from you is saying. It's not even a hearing problem. It's a processing problem where no, I'm going to listen to the music. I'm sorry. Like, I'm sitting here at my desk where I mix stuff, and I'm like listening to things that are 100 miles away in the mix.
Right.
And yet I can't pick out like if somebody is talking to me from 2 feet away while I'm doing it. My brain says no to that. And it's, I guess, because I'm already kind of so close to being overloaded in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, like, zeroing in is definitely, I think you've witnessed me just like straight up dissociate. Like, I'm just like, I would rather not be here. Okay, 3, 2, oh, she's gone. Okay. Hello? The sunken place.
Let's leave our bodies.
The
The
from
sunken place for
Get
sure.
Out,
Yeah.
you know, the funny, cool horror movie. Definitely feel sunken placey when I'm overstimulated. And
Yeah.
like,
And then suddenly I'm like surrounded by white people.
or
Damn it.
it's horrible.
Not again.
Or, you know, like there's a piece of frosted glass between me and every other living person.
Hey, yeah, that's straight up dissociation right there. That sounds like my dissociative events of like 6 years ago.
Or just like, you know, when people are talking, it's like, and I'm just like,
So it really does seem like being in the wake of PTSD is going to exacerbate some of these
Yeah.
highly sensitive issues.
yeah.
So she lists a lot, as we've said, like kind of Jeff Foxworthy style. You
Yeah.
might be an HSP if you do these
Yeah,
things.
and she goes through like, you know, defining high sensitivity, defining what that looks like in your childhood, this list, and then what that looks like in social relationships, you know,
And
a
I
list.
think she says toward the beginning of the book that it's about 20 to 25% of the population.
Yeah.
But then I feel like she sabotages that by going in and like describing everything that could
Right.
possibly happen. Did you feel like she was just describing humans at large?
Yeah,
by
I mean,
the
it
end
kind of
the
felt,
list?
again, like I said earlier, like codependent no more. Like, but I think that one positive thing that I really did glean from the book is that, you know, through my life and being in relationships or with friends and family and people I love, feeling very othered. Because when I was in, you know, my 20s, I really did learn, oh, not everyone feels like empathetic. Okay, not everyone feels this intuition. Not everyone can read gestures and non-vocal cues and tones and pitches and just overall auras and vibes of people in the way that I do. And that really does make me feel very isolated, because I might see something, you know, I mean, and we all have seen the memes that are like, I told my friend that person was a bitch, and then they said, oh, they're great. And then they run back 3 months later telling me some bitchy thing that person did. And I said, yeah, maybe you should have listened to me when you said, oh, you're being so judgmental. And I'm like, it's a vibe. Or maybe it's just bitch recognize bitch. I don't know.
Right. So I feel like I didn't get the empath superpowers, but I definitely got the bit where my environment is terrifying to me.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. Starting with school.
Yeah.
Like, school was an especially terrifying place for me till I graduated. For reasons I've talked about before, Brady Crow. But, you know, there was somebody like that every year.
If he happens to listen.
There was somebody like that every year, and so school remained sort of terrifying, and I'd be on high alert if I walked into a situation where I thought I was going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And I stayed like that until now.
Yeah. My school situation wasn't extremely terrifying. It was very stressful as far as academically.
That would have been nice.
Maybe it's just because I'm a dumbass. I don't know. Like I was like always just like crying and stressing over like my homework and tests and things to study for and shit. Maybe it's just because I'm an idiot. I don't know. It came naturally to other people.
I know in my case, when I was at the earlier, nicer school, that I'd get like some 9 hours of homework or some shit like that.
Right.
You know, but it wasn't like impossible to do. I just wish that I had been challenged in high school at all. Instead, it was a review of 5th through 8th grade.
And like some of the like way smarter kids, like the kids that are like at the top of the class where I'm like, you know, in the middle top of the class, you know, like those kids were like really vicious to each other, like about their grades and stuff. And I was always like, well, I ain't even smart enough to worry about that. So y'all could just like fuss and fight amongst yourselves. God, like that's so weird.
The battle for who was going to be valedictorian.
Right. And I was like, well, you know, I'm just sitting pretty at 15th. I'm good. Like, I ain't worried about 2nd or 3rd. God, I'm such an idiot. What is wrong with me? I could stand to care more about things, I think.
It's very, very highly sensitive of you to recognize that.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on.
Yeah, so, you know, I mean, she's going through sensitive people in the workplace, sensitive people. I said in social relationships, she also talks about, like, your romantic relationships.
Yeah, she talks about, like, what your romantic relationships will be like. She suggests...
Or if it's, like, 2 HSPs dating.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder what that would sounds like a nightmare.
What's that like?
I think it's pretty good.
And also she gets into like vocational stuff.
Yeah.
Of you know, here's how you might figure out what career path you need to be on.
Right.
But the strange thing about HSPs, as she says, is that highly sensitive people can sometimes not be so good at figuring out their own needs.
Yeah.
Which I largely am blind to my own needs.
Yeah. I mean, and that's legitimate. And I kind of interpreted that as like, as a sensitive person, as Miss Aron would probably like us to be, is kind of embracing the positive aspects of being sensitive as far as just being like intuitive and being compassionate, because the world definitely needs that.
And you could pick a job where intuition is going to be a big deal. Like,
but for me, I've up until, my late 20s have always just been trying to suppress it. And, that just because it's always been really hard for me to relate to people. It's always really hard for me to feel understood. And I always just kind of felt like it would just be easier if I didn't care about other people like most everyone else.
And maybe we learn we're supposed to be that way, and
in some situations, sure.
Press engage on that button and stop giving a shit.
Like let go, like stop caring. And I think I have become kind of good at that in some ways.
Same.
But so I think that she really wants HSPs to embrace the flaws and positivities and kind of harness that special aspect of ourselves for good, not for evil.
Yes. I'm an empath.
I'm just an empath. And like sometimes I'll like sit here and be like, I'm so intuitive, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, but why didn't I see like some of these like whack ass men coming from my way?
There's other issues. There's family of origin, first loves, all sorts of things can step in the way of who you are and integrate themselves into your psyche that way, which sucks. And we have to go to therapy for it to get back to finding ourselves.
But like I always feel so guilty for like crying in front of people. I don't know. I mean, that's definitely something that I try to work on, because crying makes people very uncomfortable, like 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And then sometimes people will just stare at you like they don't give a shit, and that doesn't really feel great either.
They're just looking at you like, I'm already at capacity. I'm numb. I'm at 101% of functioning capacity, and my processor just shut down.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in the book about being overstimulated, and
Right.
I wanted to. Gosh, so I was microdosing earlier this week. Ha 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 ha, for depression, and as I microdose every single day, I'm microdosing every time you've ever heard my voice. And we went to a pizza place, and I sat in an area where it was kind of an out of the way corner in an otherwise crowded pizza place. And then this guy came in with his kid and his kid's friends. And I
didn't know if it was his kids, like he had like 5 kids.
Unless they were all exactly the same age and slightly different like ethnicities, which is
fair.
Doable. But that's what I assumed. So they come in, and at that moment I realized that I'm sitting against, like, with my back to and chair touching the only arcade game that's in the place.
Yeah, and it's like a little tiny. It's not even like one of the bigger ones.
It's not a full-sized one.
Yeah,
it's a
like
smaller
half.
one. It's
like 4 or 5 feet
larger
tall.
than the Ms. Pac-Man flat screen on that 2 players sit down at. I'm talking about like it's in between that and the regular sized one.
Yeah.
So these 18 children come and sit down.
It's not.
It was 25 children.
Oh my God.
But okay, so please
You're
picture
embellishing.
in what way? 2 of these children are touching me. Like they sit down, and like one kid's knee is actually in my side. And
your face when that happened too
and,
was like
a hand
the
keeps on
funniest.
like touching my arm. Like I'm not a fucking coat rack. Like there is a whole man here, a man that could stand up and beat the shit out of your dad and all of you at the drop of a hat. So I'm sitting here and like I'm just going rom, rom, rom. I'm just trying to like fucking meditate through it. But at the same time, blood sugar is crashing. Like I'm already waiting for my food. And then this asshat's food fucking arrives before ours, even though he came in 15 minutes after us.
Oh my God.
And his kids continued to just like kind of be all over me and loud enough for the whole restaurant to turn around a couple of times and look at all of these kids, the 45 children that were bouncing up and down on top of me.
One of the children was your own child, by the way.
Dare you? How dare you? But yeah, I mean, he was absolutely, he piled on and added in. But all of the kids like screamed at the same point.
Yeah.
And the dad finally like turned around and told them to hush. But like the rest of the restaurant was like, wow, it really took a lot for him to say something. Meanwhile, the kid is still touching me.
I mean, that's kind of the stereotype of dads.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I suppose. Which made me that much angrier at him because I've been like, how many times have I been the writer in like a parenting magazine that was like writing the little dads column? Like the moms get an entire magazine and then I've got like 100 words in
is there a dad column?
Yeah, there'll be like a dad's column.
Dad's
like
corner.
Dad's corner. It's like, how do I get my daughter into tools? It's always just like this stupid stereotypical thing where the dad sucks at everything parenting related. And I doubly hate this guy because he is doing that.
Right.
Because he's being the fucking incompetent dad in the pizza restaurant with the loud kids and jumping all over the guy with the long hair. So I go from being like microdosing, blissed out Ram Dass mode to I have lost it.
Yeah.
Like I am losing it and I'm getting angrier and angrier, not just at the dad, not so much at the kids, but myself. You know why? Because I haven't said shit. Like, I don't know what to do about this. It's
Right.
just kids.
Right.
It's a goddamn arcade game. We're in a pizza place. You know, I'm not going to go to Chuck E. Cheese and be like, I need everybody to shut up.
Well, I mean, we didn't
I'm
go.
an HSP.
To be fair, we didn't go to Chuck E. Cheese. When I asked Hamish, Adam's son, if he'd ever been to Chuck E. Cheese, he looked at me and went, ew.
So I just thought it was funny that I'm microdosing, blissed out, and then you just add in like a whole bunch of extra stimulus, and I've lost it.
Yeah.
Like I'm completely unregulated, angry, depressed for the rest of the day. Like I had to come home and do all sorts of shit, including like 10, 15 minutes of meditation to just get back to the point where I didn't want to like murder my dogs for being assholes as soon as we got home.
Yeah. I mean, and I, in that situation, was not overstimulated.
No, the kids weren't on you.
Right. But I've definitely talked to you about like being overstimulated by the dogs. Cause like I'm a cat lady, and the cats,
Yeah,
for
what
the
are they
most
going to
part, quiet. I mean, they're definitely little Mungo Jerry and ruffled teaser motherfuckers sometimes, but the dogs start barking and running, and oh my god, it will take like 0.5 seconds for me to be like, I'm done. I've had it.
And it feels personal.
Right. And I'm like, they're just dogs.
The thing with
like,
the
they're
kids
just dogs.
felt personal.
Right.
The parade a few weeks ago, you know, like
Oh god,
it feels
that
like
was hard for me.
a personal attack on like your own peace.
Yeah.
It's difficult and weird, but at this point, my youngest son knows that I'll tell him sometimes like, look, I'm getting overstimulated and I need you to not come to me and tell me everything that you know about Minecraft right now. Like, please feel free to sit next to me and play Minecraft.
Yes.
But if you open your mouth and shout at the video game one more time, I'm throwing everything you own out into the street in a blind rage.
Yes.
But I wouldn't do that. But that's what it feels
yes, you
like.
would. Don't let him fool you.
I used to have another son. There was a third kid that all of his stuff got thrown out into the swamp one time.
Oh my god.
Got eaten by alligators. But to me, that kind of situation is what she's talking about with the highly sensitive people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I'm looking around in the restaurant and nobody else is turning red and losing it.
But that's also like one of my therapists used to talk about the girl who cried over the ice cream cone. So you're going throughout your day. I don't know. You said you were having a good day. I sometimes will like something goes wrong at work. Somebody said something that hurt my feelings. I don't know, just got a flat tire, just like the telltale bad day things. And then you pull up to, I think the story was like McDonald's, and you order ice cream cone. And as the McDonald's way, they're like, it's broke. And you just break down and cry. Well, you're not crying over the ice cream cone, right?
You're crying because like the thing that you were trying to do to get back on the horse did not work.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that sometimes, can happen to me. I can definitely be a little confusing. Like, why is she crying right now?
Yeah.
But it's usually like a lot of stuff that I've just like internalized and folded over in my brain and just kind of like swept under the rug just to keep on going when I should have kind of stopped and recharged. Will definitely hit me in the ass later.
Yeah.
So a lot of the book was talking about kind of how to live.
Yeah, one of those things was therapy.
Yeah, she was
she was talking about like how medication can be very effective because highly sensitive people are always overwhelmed, essentially.
Yeah.
And you may be able to take something that brings your baseline level of overwhelm down.
We can't just be out here raw dogging life.
Man, I'd like to be.
No.
I'd like to not be on antidepressants anymore because my antidepressant sucks.
No, we got a balm for everything.
Yeah, a salve. But talk therapy, she was saying, was extremely effective for HSPs.
For sure.
Just being able to get things off their chest and unburden themselves. Do you remember like kind of what was the crux of like why talk therapy was the big winner?
Well, I mean, I think that with anybody, you know, you need a place to vent and where you're not feeling like you're wrong and you're not feeling like you're being judged. I mean, for anybody, you need really a place of like belonging. And if you're like me and you're like, is my therapist judging me? You're not even really supposed to think about things like that. Because this is a paid professional and not someone you're hanging out with.
No, my paid professional is like the guy in Office Space that's like, man, that's fucked up.
Oh, I usually get, that's a lot. Okay.
Son of a.
Well, that's a lot. That's like when Adam had come with me to one of my therapy sessions last week. And she was like, well, y'all would be great candidates for couples therapy. I'm like, oh, okay.
I think that was because we were a couple that was sitting in front of her.
Oh, you think?
I think that had a lot to do with it. I thought it was just
because, like, we're traumatized people.
That too. I'm always just kind of aware when somebody's trying to sell me something. But regardless of whether or not she was, you know, just trying to sell me something.
No, I don't think so.
I feel like, you know, a little more therapy, it isn't really going to hurt.
No.
And being able to have like common tools to, it just because the nature of mine and Amber's relationship is like, oh, we've both got these raw spots and our relationship works awesomely as long as both people aren't experiencing raw spot activation. But let's say we're both activated. That means there's no grown-ups in the room, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's why I was saying to your therapist that, like, you know, I wouldn't mind a little help with that because I'm a little rusty on it and on, you know, both of us being traumatized people.
Yeah.
You know, it'd just be dumb to I don't need therapy.
Well, you know, like when I was like catching up with my friends, I was like, oh yeah, Adam and I are going to couples therapy next week. They're like, why? Like what's I mean, y'all seem to be
what
fine.
Happened?
Yeah, like what?
Oh, I thought everything was going so well.
Yeah, they're like, oh God.
All is lost.
After my last relationship, they're like running in with pitchforks, like, what the fuck happened?
What did he do? What did he do? Tell me.
No, I was like, no, I think, you know, we're just like two mentally ill folks. I'm trying to like find some common.
We're 2 to 3 mentally ill folks.
Yeah, there might be some extras thrown in. Oh, you were talking about sexually. I was just talking about my many personalities.
I'm talking about being 1.5 to 1.75 mentally ill people myself.
Yeah, like
I've got 2 mentally ill folks, one for each of you.
Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, there was a part of the book that I just kind of thought was a little hilarious. I don't know if you remember this part, where she was talking about your social relationships, making friends, because
I'm not familiar. Can you tell me more about that?
Right, because it is hard. I think it's hard for adults to make friends with each other.
Obviously.
I think like everybody knows that that's kind of a hard thing. And I think that sometimes it's easier when we acknowledge how hard that is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But
in my case, I'm just like, why? What's the point in like making friends because they just die?
Oh my God. Anyway, I guess you don't consider me a friend. That's fine. I'll remember this.
Lover.
I'm going to keep this for therapy. But she was talking about going to at least one party a month. And I'm like sitting here like, I'm good to go to like one party a year.
No.
First of all.
We had a party in my fucking living room last night,
we
and it was just the
did.
two of us.
And some dogs.
And some dogs. Is that what she's talking about? I don't think it is, but that's what I'm talking about.
And first of all, like, who's getting invited to like 5 parties a month? Like, what kind of budget
How
is?
old are you people?
Well, I'm just talking about, like, well, this must be some rich folks or something. I don't know who's having all these parties. But
She talking about high schoolers? What's going
I don't
on?
know. I mean, granted, even when I was partying a lot, there wasn't like just like tons and tons of parties.
Oh my God, wait a minute. I just realized that, like, I haven't heard of anyone having a party in almost 3 years. Oh, right. There's been a pandemic.
Oh, right. Well, I just mean like in general. Like, I'm not
Oh,
really...
yeah, for sure. But I was just thinking, like, my friends don't fucking have parties.
No.
Oh, no, they don't have parties. That's right. They don't.
Right. And then she also said, I think in the same little section, she said, we're going to try to meet one new friend a week. And I'm
What?
like, what? Look, I got my friends.
This is not enough time to vet people.
I got my friends.
You know?
I don't need... I mean,
this new person, I'm going to have to evaluate whether or not they're a narcissist. I have
Right.
to
Oh my
I have to
God.
see if they're a
Right.
compulsive liar.
Right. Jesus.
Like, are you going to say that you're going to be somewhere and then actually be there
Are you
or not?
manipulating me? Yeah.
Right. And then if you're not, is it okay that you're dead to me for perpetuity?
And I don't make friends with men, so that like cuts out like 50%.
Neither do I. Or women.
You have a lot of friends. Adam has a lot of friends. He acts like he doesn't, but
Tell that to my friends.
You have so many people that care about you, men and
That's
women.
not what depression says.
Men and women. He has them. But yeah, so I'm like, I love meeting people and I love, interacting with new folks, but straight up, like, I am not trying to make a new friend once a week. Like, that's too many. I got enough Christmas money, like, to buy y'all presents. Like, no.
What do friends do even?
Me and my friends typically hang out and we don't wear pants or bras. And we drink a lot of wine and watch movies and talk nonstop about sex.
That actually sounds pretty good.
Lots of snacks involved.
Hang on, snacks?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Charcuteries.
Maybe I do want a friend.
You want my friends.
Maybe. Are they cool?
No, they are cool. You like some of them.
I definitely like some of them. Okay, so what are you going to remember about this book, like, a year from now?
Yeah,
Is there anything that's still going to be, like, useful? Or
I was worried you were going to ask me that.
Okay, for me, I feel like just being aware of...
Right.
And I was already on the path to doing it, just
Right.
recognizing when I'm just about overstimulated and taking measures to do something about it. I will say that before I read the book, I felt like I have a very rare condition and that I'm being a fucking diva when I do this. And after reading the book, I'm like, oh, some people just have to take a fucking break from the noise or the lights or whatever.
Well, have you met me?
Yeah. And honestly, if I don't obey some of this HSP overstimulating stuff, I'll just get a migraine.
Yeah.
The migraine
You
will
get
be
sick, and she talks about that.
the migraine will be the thing that's like, all right, sorry, I've got to tap out now.
And for other people, it might be like a panic attack
Or stomach ache.
GI, some kind of gastrointestinal issue. Like, so she has said you will get sick if you keep, repressing and forcing yourself, out interacting with people when you're spent.
Are we still talking about the body keeps the score?
Also, can tie in with the body keeps a score.
Wow.
So for this book, for me, like when I had talked about the ethical slut being a little bit advanced for me, like I'm still in like sexuality 101 and this is like sex and orgies 303. This one for me felt like highly sensitive 101, and I'm kind of already in a higher level of understanding and therapy.
You're beyond all of that.
In my personal journey, I just felt like it's kind of telling me stuff I knew.
Yeah.
So,
It was newsier news to me.
yeah. I mean,
A lot of it was intuitive.
Granted, and like I said earlier, I, kind of thought that it was going to be talking mostly about emotional stuff and not so much about like the physical
Sensory
aspects, which I was surprised by, but it's not like I didn't really know that about myself. And it's not like I really didn't think that those things all tied in together.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, like you said, I think it's really cool to be able to identify these things about myself. And I'm glad that this book is out there for other people to identify these things about themselves. If you're listening and you're like, wow, these poor, sad people sound a lot like me.
Yeah. I'd say
Maybe
read
pick it
the
up.
book
Yeah.
and wield the information wisely.
Yeah.
If you're zipping through the self-help books this season like we are, there is the temptation to take all of it to heart as if 100% of it applies to you.
Well, and
Chances are that it's
you're going to be able to
90%
heal
at best.
yourself when you know what the problem is. So, like, when you go to your therapist and you say, I think I might be a highly sensitive person, then that professional can use that to help you in your therapy.
I can see mine
Being like, duh.
clicking his ballpoint pen and writing it down like hypochondriac thinks that he has this other thing now. Fuck. Here's another thing I have to talk him out of thinking he
Sometimes
has.
when I see my therapist like typing away at stuff like that, whenever I say like a certain thing, I feel like she's saying she finally came to this conclusion. About fucking
do
time.
you think you're highly sensitive? Do you really think that? Wow. How highly sensitive of you.
She finally figured it out. So yeah, I mean,
so it seemed like it was well written. She seems nice.
oh yeah.
The narrator for
Was not
our
great.
version was great.
No. It's so delightful to be highly sensitive. Like, oh my God.
That was actually a really, really good impression of her.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, babe.
That was like such a good
But what did I say? Freaking Body Keeps the Score episodes, however many, 2 episodes ago. I always keep it 100 in checking in. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I ain't gonna say I love this book when I really didn't. But I freaking got through it.
Yeah.
So,
Yay! We finished a book.
and we still haven't even figured out what we're gonna do next week.
Once again, we don't know what we're going to do next week. So either we're going to turn to the polls, or
We have a huge list.
we're going to grab something from the
Yeah.
pile, or maybe we'll just go back to our local bookstore and just ask for more recommendations.
Yeah.
We haven't done a Brene Brown yet, and obviously she's
popular.
She's looming large in the distance.
I got
Is she here yet?
a request for, which some of my best friends listening will know this one. Why does he do that? Why do you do that?
I've never heard of that, and I'm
lot of
not
my
going to
friends-
respond to these accusations.
A lot of my friends listening have requested that one, and even just a few like random folks.
My friends haven't requested a goddamn thing because I don't have any.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do.
And they've told me they listen.
Which is very sweet of them.
So, yeah, if you guys have any suggestions, always throw them our way. We will keep you updated.
All right. Sounds like we're
socials. We forgot.
I didn't forget. I was about to say that shit.
no.
Sounds like we've reached the end of another episode, Amber. Can you tell us about the socials?
So our socials are always
Instagram.
I mean, that's just how it is. Checking.in.podcast. Please, hit us up there. I'm going to try to find Elaine, Aron.
And also, don't forget to just randomly send us money.
Oh, right. Okay, it's Aron, like with one A. And I don't...
That's why I said Aron, not
Aron.
Aaron.
I don't guess she's on Instagram.
If we find out that she's on Instagram, we'll tag her
Oh, she's beautiful.
the week that that the episode comes out. And
she's also a doctor.
Yes.
I didn't know.
Yep. Somebody might have mentioned that earlier.
You probably did. Yep.
That was before Amber got here.
Oh, yeah. I flew in later. I was dissociating at the top of the episode.
You were hearing the opening theme music for a good 20 minutes after the
She
show started.
is, I saw a picture of her. She is beautiful, but she is elderly. So that might explain the lack of Instagram.
Oh, so she don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
She's not down here messing around with us
Social
kids.
media is overstimulating. I say that.
Wow.
I've told you that constantly.
Yes.
So, hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Get off of social media and don't listen to podcasts. All right. Well, we've reached the end of another episode. It was so good spending time with y'all again this week, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.